name's Rodrigo, this is Ether, where we try to elevate and teach the Bible through digital media, and today we're continuing our series in the book of Mark. We are in Mark 9, verses 38 through 50. In this part of the narrative of Mark, Jesus has really turned his attention to his disciples, really teaching them what it means to be his follower, but also teaching them what the morals of a disciple are supposed to be. In this particular passage, he teaches about rivalries, corruption, and sin, and he does it from an angle that we often miss, but that's really important to what Jesus is trying to teach. This passage begins by the Apostle John coming to Jesus and telling him that somebody's been going around exorcising demons in his name, and that he tried to stop him because he wasn't part of their crew. Jesus tells him not to worry about it because anybody who's not against them is for them. Jesus then talks about the little ones who believe in him and how anybody who tries to corrupt them and make them sin is going to have a terrible fate. He also talks about how we should stay away from sin, even if it costs us one of our limbs, because that would be better than going to hell. Jesus then closes all of this out by saying this statement, that we ought to have salt within ourselves and try to get along in peace with one another. What Jesus is trying to teach here seems pretty straightforward. For one, that we shouldn't consider somebody who's not part of our crew to be our enemy, that in fact we should consider them an ally unless they're actively against us. Second, that we shouldn't go around corrupting the innocent. And third, that we should stay away from sin or we're going to go to hell. However, this passage also raises some questions. For one, who are the little ones? Is he talking about young believers, maybe like the young man who was going around exorcising demons? Or is he talking about children? Scholars have long discussed and debated which one it is, but the bottom line is that regardless of which one it is, we have the ability to both corrupt young believers and young people, and we shouldn't do it. The other thing is that Jesus moves so fast between talking about all these different things that it almost seems like they're totally unrelated. The key to really understanding this passage has a lot to do with us understanding how the Bible generally portrays sin. We tend to think of sin as something that just affects the individual, but all throughout the Bible, sin is talked about in the context of a community. When God sends prophets to preach about sin, who they're often addressing is the whole nation of Israel. Even in the New Testament, when the New Testament authors talk about sin, most often they talk about it in terms of how it affects the church. Even if you think about Adam, yes, Adam and Eve as individuals were kicked out of the garden, but all of humanity had to pay for their failure. Sin doesn't have just individual effects, it affects the world around the sinner. By looking at sin in this way, we can see how Jesus' last statement in this passage brings all of these teachings together. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can you make it salty again? Have salt among yourselves and be at peace with each other. Salt at this time was used as a preservative for food, but also wasn't as well refined as today, and a lot of times it would have impurities that would actually make it not salty. At its best, salt would keep things from spoiling, it would keep them pure, and at its worst, it was totally useless. What Jesus means by us being salty is that he wants us to be pure, but what we have to understand is that that means that we keep ourselves pure, but we also keep the world around us pure. By staying away from sin, not only do we affect our lives, but we can also purify our world.